My name is Katie Richardson, and I am representing Grace Community School in Texas. Today, I will be presenting a paper on mimetic theory in Much Ado About Nothing. William Shakespeare's writing stands the test of time due to his many strengths as an author. His range as a dramatist stretches from historical plays diving into the political events under British monarchs to tragedies focused on the downfall of a noble protagonist, to whimsical comedies filled with mistaken identities and neatly wrapped up finales, most involving a wedding or two. Much Ado About Nothing represents one of Shakespeare's strongest comedies due to his complex characters and his ability to navigate friendship and love. This play offers a profound exploration of how desire, identity, and social harmony are all conveyed through René Girard's mimetic process, found in A Theatre of Envy, William Shakespeare. Roland Barthes said, "It is by language that the other is altered." This perfectly describes the mimetic desire that runs rampant through Much Ado About Nothing. Shakespeare often defines mimetic desire in his comedies. He calls it, quote, "love that stood upon the choice of friends," end quote, quote, "love by another's eye," end quote, and, quote, "love by hearsay." These descriptors ring true in this play, as seen through Claudio and Hero's romantic ins and outs and the romantic back and forth between Benedict and Beatrice. After his initial introduction, Claudio immediately professes his love for Hero to Benedict, longing for approval. Benedict, a self-professed long-term bachelor, taunts Claudio, question after question, withholding his approval or honest reaction to Hero. Even though Claudio continues praising her, it's not until Don Pedro, the Prince of Aragon, enters the conversation by praising Hero's beauty that he finally professes his love for her. Claudio is genuinely attracted to Hero, but he wants to be sure that his long-standing interest in her meets the approval of those whose judgment he values. He wants to be told he is making the right choice. Girard, 83. Not only does Don Pedro's approval of Hero help Claudio feel confident in professing his love, but it spurs him even more knowing that Don Pedro thinks highly of her. In Claudio's mind, the idea that Don Pedro might desire her in some way elevates his own desires. Don Pedro convinces Claudio to allow him to woo Hero during the masquerade that night in order to help Claudio. During the masquerade, Don John, Pedro's villainous, recently defeated brother, interrupts Claudio's journey to love by persuading him that Don Pedro woos Hero for himself rather than for Claudio. Devastated and hurt, Claudio quickly retracts his professions of love. In Act 2, Scene 1, line 559 to 560, Claudio says, "Friendship is constant in all other things, save in the office and affairs of love." Claudio's distrust of a solid friend comes at the swift trust in hearsay. His decision to abandon this love interest in Hero strengthens when Benedict tells him that Don Pedro has, quote, "your hero," Act 2, Scene 1, line 576. Girard correctly labels Claudio as self-defeating, one who constantly views himself as undesirable. Girard also says he accepts the rumor of her marriage with the prince as uncritically as the outsiders who know nothing about the agreement that he himself has made with his commander. This pessimistic young man is paralyzed by a self-defeating introspection that the critics mistake for coldness and shallow optimism. Once the party has concluded, this hypermimetic young man learns that Don Pedro did as he said he would. He has won Hero for Claudio, not himself. Of course, he reacts as a young Elizabethan soldier should, with theatrical declarations of love. From Act 2, Scene 3 to Act 3, Scene 2, Don Pedro, Claudio, Leonardo, Hero, and Ursula deliberately manipulate Beatrice and Benedict's desire through eavesdropping and deception. From the moment they are on stage together, Benedict and Beatrice never let a moment pass where they do not argue or banter. Quote, there is a kind of merry war betwixt Signor Benedict and her. They never meet, but there is a skirmish of wit between them. Act 1, Scene 1, line 59 to 62. Not only do these two loudly profess their opposition to marriage, but it has become essential to their identity. All those around them know their opinions on the social norm of marriage. This inverse mimesis showcases their opposition to what society and others expect and want for them. Yet even this mutual desire to oppose society bonds the two together. Despite this, Don Pedro, Claudio, and Leonardo work together to trick Benedict into believing that Beatrice adores him, but remains too shy or wary to profess it. They begin by expressing their wonder at Beatrice's passionate love for Benedict and how shocked they are that she would choose him. Their confidence in this trick grows as they see Benedict begin to listen. Quote, bait the hook well, this fish will bite. Claudio, Act 2, Scene 3, 927. Benedict cannot believe his ears, though he relies on social cues to assume what is true and false. In Act 2, Scene 3, lines 931 to 939, the following scene. Don Pedro, you amaze me. I would have thought her spirit had been invincible against all assaults of affection. Leonardo, I would have sworn it had, my lord, especially against Benedict. Benedict's aside. I should think this all a gull, but that the white-bearded fellow speaks it, knavery cannot, sure, hide itself in such reference. Claudio, he hath taken the infection. Hold it up. Once they feel he is sufficiently confident that this woman loves him, they bring him back down, saying that she knows Benedict would mock her if he knew. Their manipulation of him is complete. They make him believe he is loved, then plant the seed of character change in his mind. For him to accept or even reciprocate her love, he must modify himself to her desires and the desires of others. After this conversation, the women go to work on Beatrice and their attempt at convincing her that Benedict loves her. However, they change their approach from the men. They swiftly tear down her character first, instead of initially convincing her of Benedict's love. They go on and on that, quote, she is too disdainful, and that, quote, nature never framed a woman's heart of prouder stuff than that of Beatrice. Act 3, Scene 1. The conversation turns to how Benedict must adjust his desires for her, as she would never accept his love. Quote, once Hero and Ursula convince Beatrice that Signor Benedict, eye for shape, forbearing, argument, and valor, goes foremost in report through Italy, she seems more willing to abandon her pride and scorn and acknowledge him as the man of superior substance by whom she will allow herself to be overmastered. Friedman 355. Struck, Beatrice reflects on what she hears from the ladies and weighs what it means for her own desires. Quote, contempt, farewell, and maiden pride, adieu. Act 3, Scene 1, 1190. Her desires change from remaining a single, strong-willed woman to a much softer, kinder woman searching for Benedict's love. Quote, Jean Howard has demonstrated that the prince's conspiracy not only brings to the surface the witty combatants' concealed mutual affection, but also completes their successful interpolation into particular positions within a gendered social order. Friedman 355. Throughout the play, identities shift with each new trick or romantic link. Benedict starts with promises of lifelong bachelorhood. Quote, I will live a bachelor. Act 1, Scene 1, 221. Through and through, he establishes this identity through negative mimesis and his strong opposition to married men and many public declarations that no woman is good enough to tie him down. Quote, one woman is fair, yet I am well. Another is wise, yet I am well. Another virtuous, yet I am well. But till all graces be in one woman shall not come in my grace. Act 2, Scene 3. After the gulling scene, transformation takes hold of Benedict. He shaves off his beard and rubs himself with civet, a perfume, so that his appearance can draw in Beatrice. He strips himself of the bachelor lifestyle by making himself much more presentable. Complaining of sickness, Claudio says that his spirit has, quote, crept into a lute string and now governed by stops. Act 3, Scene 2. Some new emotion plays on Benedict's spirit, one that he is not familiar with or used to. Love. Love has taken hold of Benedict and changed him into something more akin to Claudio. On Beatrice's end, she begins her transformation into femininity and love. Beatrice moves from taking pride in her strength and sharp tongue to bringing her softer side to the surface. Where Benedict's transition began with a physical and emotional change, Beatrice looked inward for a change of heart. Quote, stand I condemned for pride and scorn so much? Act 3, Scene 1, 1188. Michael D. Friedman delves into why Beatrice's speech and tone were the first to change in the article Hushed on Purpose to Grace Harmony, Wives and Silence in Much Ado About Nothing. He states that, quote, the power displayed by Shakespeare's comic heroines is almost routinely surrendered to their husbands when they marry. For, as Linda E. Boos has observed, female roles are invariably qualified by Shakespeare's overriding conviction that social harmony requires male control, end quote. Beatrice bucked the system by holding on to her wit and drive, but would bend it all for Benedict's love. With this more loving internal transformation, she retains her wit and fire. After Claudio spurns Hero at the altar, Beatrice tells Benedict, ah, how much might the man deserve of me that would right her? Act 4, Scene 1, 1914. As the conversation continues, both profess their love for each other. Benedict, I do love nothing in the world so well as you. Is not that strange? Beatrice, as strange as the thing I know not. It were as possible for me to say that I loved nothing so well as you. But believe me not, and yet I lie not. I confess nothing, nor deny nothing. Act 4, Scene 1, 1919 to 1924. Their merry war slows into merry discourse filled with proclamations of love. As the conversation continues, both encounter the next steps of their altered identities. Benedict begs Beatrice, quote, come bid me do anything for thee. Her response is passionate but to the point. Kill Claudio. Act 4, Scene 1, 1939 to 1940. When Benedict declines, Beatrice calls him out on his words versus actions and how she would act if possible. Quote, is he not approved in the height a villain that hath slandered, scorned, dishonored my kinswoman? Oh, that I were a man! What bear in her hand until they come to take hands? And then, with public accusation, uncovered slander, unmitigated rancor. Oh God, that I were a man, I would eat his heart in the marketplace. Act 4, Scene 1, 151 to 157. She laments that true manliness has disappeared and that Benedict remains all talk and no action. This criticism of manliness and her observation of words over actions speaks volumes to the play's theme. Because of her strong speech, Benedict decides to choose her over Claudio and promises to kill him. In this moment, Benedict mimics her love and reciprocates it. Girard says, in order to desire someone who must desire us, we must not imitate the offered desire. We must reciprocate it, which is vastly different. Positive reciprocity demands an inner strength that mimetic desire lacks. Finally, Shakespeare explores identity and desire through social harmony and discord. Don John, the illegitimate younger brother who recently lost the battle against Don Pedro, arrives full of mischief and malice, ready to upheave any sense of social harmony. Through his actions, Claudio readily believes that Don Pedro will woo Hero for himself, and later believes that Hero sleeps with another man before their wedding day. Don John's disruption leads to the most prominent example of mimetic rivalry and contagion in the course of the play. The mimetic rivalry builds when he hears Claudio yearning for Hero. Quote, that young startup hath all the glory of my overthrow. If I can cross him any way, I bless myself every way. Act 1, Scene 3, 388 to 391. With the engagement between Claudio and Hero finalized, Don John vows to ruin them both. He tells Don Pedro and Claudio that Hero is, quote, every man's hero. Act 3, Scene 2, 1293. This shifts the great hero's identity in seconds. No longer is she the dream woman that would make the perfect bride and wife, but now her honor is besmirched and ruined. With a rush of mimetic contagion and frenzy, the men plan to view her infidelity and publicly shame her during the wedding. Without seeing the truth for himself, Claudio accuses her, refuses to believe her denial, and, calling her, quote, a rotten orange, storms out. Poor Hero faints and chaos ensues. Leonardo, her father, laments that her shame has infected him. Don Pedro claims, quote, I stand dishonored, that have gone about to link my dear friend to a common stale. Act 4, Scene 1, 1705 to 1706. On merely Don John's word, and no solid proof, the horrific mimetic frenzy claims the honor of Hero and all who are attached to her. Hero, the scapegoat, carries the brunt of all insecurities and uncertainties. According to Girard, infidelity has been traditionally regarded as more shocking in women than in men. The mimetic frenzy could be attributed to men's honor and the need for quick actions, but Beatrice, too, falls to the contagion. She begs Benedict to kill Claudio to prove he loves her and to avenge Hero's honor. Through many ups and downs, Baracchio, Don John's minion, confesses to all. Don John, the new scapegoat, flees, thus restoring Hero's honor. Quote, without Don John, many people would find the play disturbing and scandalous. Shakespeare enables them to project upon a scapegoat the violence that is in fact evenly distributed among all characters. Girard 88. Claudio still thinks she lies dead and mourns her after realizing he still loves her like he did when he first saw her. In order to maintain social harmony, Leonardo agrees to let Claudio marry his niece, who is Hero in disguise. This is the final identity substitution to take place. Quote, the prevalence of substitution in Much Ado About Nothing signals the deep investment of the social world of Messina in instrumentalized notions of service and love in service. Shallquick 175. What makes Shakespeare's treatment of mimetic theory in Much Ado About Nothing so profound is not that desire is merely innate or even imposed through social norms, but is found through complex conversations and interactions between one another. Claudio's hypermimetic character showcases the effects of severe insecurity and how it can quickly change the perception of those around him, namely Benedict, Don Pedro, and Hero. Beatrice and Benedict first model an inverse mimetic desire to stand against all societal norms, refusing marriage and choosing witty, sometimes destructive banter with one another. However, after the gulling scenes, both reflect on their self-images due to hearsay or eavesdropping. Benedict follows his mimetic desire, changes his appearance and emotional mindset, and sets forth to win Beatrice. Following her mimetic desire, Beatrice tames her fiery dialogue in exchange for the feminine social norm, love and marriage. Hero, one of the play's intermittent scapegoats, floats between beloved goddess and unwanted rotten fruit. Her fluctuating identity comes from other people's, namely Claudio's, quick assessments and assumptions of her. As stated earlier, several phrases pinpoint how mimetic desire can be found in Shakespeare's comedies. Quote, love by hearsay remains the most accurate for Much Ado About Nothing. Thank you.